Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Premier. Last May, the Financial Accountability Officer confirmed that the government is needlessly wasting $4 billion of hydro ratepayer money on a complicated private financing scheme whose sole purpose is to conceal $40 billion worth of hydro debt off the government's books.
Wow.
The Auditor General has repeatedly warned that this scheme violates public sector accounting standards. But yesterday, the Premier stood up and defended the integrity of her $40 billion hydro borrowing scheme, saying that it had, quote, been approved, unquote, by private consultants paid by the government. Since when do the government's private consultants approve the government's books and not the independent Auditor General?
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, we're talking about a policy choice that we made to ensure that we have a clean, reliable, and an affordable electricity system for ratepayers of today and ratepayers of tomorrow, Mr. Speaker. The Fair Hydro Plan keeps the cost of borrowing, Mr. Speaker, within the rate base, not on the tax base, because that is the logical thing to do, Mr. Speaker. Electricity financing should remain within the electricity system, not the tax base. And, Mr. Speaker, the Treasury Board, Finance, OPG, the system operator, the Ontario Financing Authority, along with external advisors and world-leading, world-class accounting experts, Ernst & Young, KPMG, and Deloitte, worked on the accounting related to the Fair Hydro Plan. They, along, Mr. Speaker, with the Office of the Provincial Controller, ensured that this plan was in accordance with public sector accounting. And with this plan, Mr. Speaker, we reduced rates on average by 25% right across the province, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Speaker. Again to the Premier. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't have Arthur Anderson in on that deal. But anyway, the Auditor General pointed out that the IESO hired KPMG to design the $40 billion private financing scheme and then hired KPMG to audit the scheme it was being paid to design. That's a huge conflict of interest. This makes this audit untrustworthy, even if we ignore KPMG Canada's recent record with accounting scams like the Isle of Man tax haven scandal.
Wow.
The independent Auditor General is the only one who has no other interest than to ensure that the government's books are presented honestly. Will the Premier stop hiring private consultants who will report whatever she pays them to report and instead take the advice of the independent Auditor General?
Be seated, please. Be seated, please. Thank you. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite has just gone after a world-renowned accounting firm respected all across the globe. The member opposite also doesn't recognize, and he should, that in order for us to prepare and provide for reductions of ratepayers for electricity rates to the tune of 25%, and in some cases over 40%, that's also being done. We also had Ernst & Young and Deloitte. All of these firms have recognized that in other jurisdictions this form of accounting is permissible, and it occurs in Canada as well, Mr. Speaker. We are doing exactly what the auditors, colleagues of the Auditor General, have recommended we do. We have done so. Now, if there's a dispute between accountants, I cannot resolve them. I only can do, and our government is doing what the people of Ontario want, reductions in their rates and the betterment of our society.